Greetings everyone, Joseph Anderson back here with part B of installing a multi-site, a killer multi-site, which I failed to include in the last video was this define statement right here, the WP allow multi-site true. This needs to be activated for both subdomain multi-sites and subfolder or subdirectory multi-sites. So in any event, we'll go forward. We've added that in here, and now we're going to upload the config files, both of them, this one and the sample one. If you remember in the original video, we didn't upload those two. And let's get to that. So here we are, logged back into the root of our installation in the public HTML folder of our WordPress on the server. And I'm going to go ahead and copy over, upload these two files, which will be really quick, to the installation here, and get ready for setup. Once those config files are up there, one wants to get right to it and go to the URL and start setting up the installing the WordPress. Of course, I'll choose English. There's several languages here to choose from. Going down for if it's applicable, and then of course go continue. And here's where one inputs what the a password would be in the site title, etc. I'm going to go ahead and do that, and we'll continue on with the results. As we can see here, the install was a success. It just took a couple of seconds with once the information was input correctly in the form. And now it's time to go ahead and log in. And we're going to log right in there. And here's what we got. So we'll go ahead, and that was the Google Chrome screen wanting to save the password for this site, which I told it to go ahead and do, to adjust it, update it, etc. And in any event, we're back to our clean site here, and we want to go to with the fresh install, and we want to go ahead and start doing some cleanup here. But the most important thing was to first do is the networks. Here we are in the dashboard, and before we start cleaning this site, this fresh install up, making it, getting it ready for our production site, of course, for us to start developing on and on the front end and making it look good. You have a choice here. We logged into the dashboard, and the first thing is the tools, and we have a choice between a subdomain site and a subdirectory site. And this did not exist without putting that define multi-sites true into the wp-config.php file. In any event, to make this one a subdomain, which I'm going to do in this case, we need to put an asterisk in the DNS, and that's done in cPanel. And in the cPanel for this domain, I want to bring up the subdomains, and that's how we're going to add this. We're not going to actually make the entry in DNS. We're going to make a subdomain of it, and that in itself will create the DNS necessary for the subdomain multi-site to work correctly. So here we are in cPanel for this account, as one can see right here, AZ host test. And I just put an asterisk in here. I put that in there, by the way. Asterisk in there. And here we got the domain and public HTML. And we're going to create it right here. And it will create the correct DNS records, and as you can see, it's live. And there's some other advantages to that, but we won't get into them in this video, as they don't apply. It's really not necessary to know. Forward we go, and now that we have the asterisk in there for the wildcard subdomains, we can go ahead and install this. Now realize sometimes it takes a little bit of time for the asterisk to DNS to propagate, so to speak, a little bit. It doesn't need to do full propagation, but it does need to do propagation. So we'll go all installed. So now we've gone ahead and put that in there, the information in there for this, clicked install for the subdomain install, and this is what we get. Now we have to, there's two files that need to be adjusted now, and one of them of course is the WP config file, and the other one is the htaccess file. Now to do these statements are slightly different when doing a subdirectory, but if we had done a subdirectory or subfolder install, we still would have needed to perform this operation here. And here we go. The first thing I'm going to do is in FTP FileZilla is to open the WP config file, and here it is, and I'm going to add those commands to this. So here we go. We're going to grab this one for the WP config, and we'll go ahead and pop it in here, and I'll go and save it, and that will send it up to the server. Yes, the file's changed. Okay, boom. So that change is done. And the next one, these can be done local on your computer too, and then uploaded if you want. And then we're going to go view edit the htaccess file. It'll bring it up in my Ultra Edit text editor, and we'll flip back and grab the htaccess file stuff, and then flip to the text editor and pop that in here. So here we're going to see we've got some more statements, some new statements here. We're going to, between the begin and the end WordPress, we're going to replace that whole thing and make it look like this. And this statement here allows only our IP to access this website's WP login. So this was just an extra one. For those of you who want to use this, that's fine. If you don't, you can either totally delete these lines or comment them out in case you have a use for them in the future to block that login and only allow your IP. There we go. So those are commented out, and everything's normal and shown as it was in the first video A of this series of installs. So here we go. We're going to go ahead and save this, and FileZilla will acknowledge it, and we tell it, and it will replace it. There we go. So now our multi-site is pretty much ready to start cleaning it up after the install, but it'll be set up in multi-site mode. So let's go back to that site and see what we got going on there. We want to go ahead now and log out, and then we want to log back in, and we will notice here now it's got a network admin settings and everything. The next thing I like to do is to go ahead and clean this up, which means get rid of all the posts. No one uses that, and we don't need them. No one uses that hello there post, and we'll get rid of the pages. And we'll go ahead and in writing, this will show your post category. If you create categories that you want to be the default post, set it there. Here in reading, this looks good. Search engine visibility is not checked, so it'll be the search engine should eat it right up. here's an important thing we want to shut off. We don't want comments on this site. So like most of our sites, we don't allow comments. So we uncheck all of that stuff there. And just in case it's hacked, we still get the comment doesn't post unless manually approved. That's a security possibility there. And then the next thing, of course, is permalinks. We'll get rid of, we'll select post name. That's how we prefer our posts to be done, and save those changes. So we've gone ahead and set the permalinks in the general in the settings here, and we also set so comments couldn't be made. Adjust as necessary for those two items. Next, I want to briefly talk about themes. We can see in themes that usually they come with several of them. You should have as few themes in here as possible for security reasons, if possible. But if any unused themes or unused plugins, you should have, except in the themes, always keep, in this case, I would keep 2016, even if I added a new theme, so I'm able to troubleshoot this using 2016. You always, in the troubleshooting field, you always want to go ahead and use the default WordPress theme as the guide to figuring out if you have a theme issue or not. And in plugins, it's pretty much the same. Use as few as possible. And with that said, I'm going to dump, because we're not doing any comments, so we don't need Ask Emmet. And also Hello Dolly, that's basically useless to us. So we'll get rid of those. And to do so, it doesn't have a delete here. I'm going to do it in FTP. Here I am in the FTP of that site, and I'm going to go to where the plugins are kept and remove those two plugins manually. The Ask Emmet and Hello Dolly thing. And they're gone. And now one can do that too with extra themes. You just, via FTP, here we got 3 theme choices here. 2014, we're going to delete all but 16 in this case. Alrighty, now that that's done. So what also happens is by doing this kind of maintenance and keeping as few as you need in there, it also saves you from having to do unneeded updates and stuff. If updates come out with those themes or plugins that are not being used, you're going to get alerts, and also it helps with security because you're exposing yourself less to possible plugins and bugs and exploits and vulnerabilities where the site can get hacked. Same goes with themes, of course, too. So if there's a vulnerability in one of them, they're going to need to be updated, obviously, and hopefully before the vulnerability is exploited and your site destroyed. With that said, moving forward, we start to get into the fun part. So checking here on our plugins again, now we don't have any. And the first thing I'm going to do is get in as the network admin, the dashboard here, so I can go ahead and install plugins. And the first plugin I'm going to install is called Networks for WordPress, and that's what's going to make this magic work for our domain mapping and other multi-sites that are going to be part of this total installation.